Hi, my name is Albert Yuou Liu. I'm currently a fourth year film and media student at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. This is my film thesis on what is success, or how do you define success, for my Film 460 class major project. Now, I wanted to make this thesis because I want to challenge the notion that success is purely based on wealth and fame. This is what many people in the 21st century think, but I choose to digress. There's like many forms to measure success. Because of this, I have interviewed 4 different people of various backgrounds and various ages, ranging from science, film business, film student, and business in general. Their ages range from 20 or 21 all the way up to 75 or 76. The people that I've interviewed are Arthur McDonald. He is the 2015 Physics Nobel Prize winner for his discovery that neutrinos have a finite mass. Alex Jansen, he is a film professor at Queen's University. Furthermore, he's also the producer of Pop Sandbox, and he's also the film commissioner of Kingston, Ontario. And then we have Nicolette Schwartzman. She's a third-year film and media student at Queen's University. She is the creator of What is Failure for her film 392. Last but not least, I interviewed a family member, my aunt, Kitty Lee. So currently she's working at a Fortune 500 US company. Their headquarters is in Silicon Valley, but she is designated in China, more specifically in Shanghai. Their main focus is on 3D printing technology. And then they print all sorts of stuff, ranging from dental retainers, helmets for athletes, shoes, and many more. Without further ado, let's delve into it.
What we were able to observe with the Sudbury Neutrino Observatory is that the electron-type neutrino produced in the Sun, it's the only type produced there, 2/3 of them changed into other neutrino types before they reached our detectors here on Earth. That change in flavor, as we call it, or type, requires that neutrinos have a finite mass. And that is of significance both in terms of meaning that we have to change the standard model. We have to add to the standard model. And actually scientists, rather than saying, oh, phooey, our model is broken, they say, we have some new information that may enable us to have a more complete model, may enable us to include gravity if we have this more complete model. It also addresses some questions that relate to how the universe has evolved. Neutrino mass has some influence in that. And so it is regarded as very fundamental. And in addition, by making the measurements we did, we were able to confirm that we understand how the sun burns with great accuracy, with an agreement between theory and our experiment within about 10%. And that's quite remarkable in considering the complexity of the way in which the sun is composed, and also the set of reactions that power the sun, nuclear fusion reactions. There were 16 of us that came together in 1984, led at Queen's by George Ewan, who was a professor who had already been looking for underground sites to do fundamental physics. We came together to pursue an idea from a professor at the University of California at Irvine, Herb Chen, who contacted one of our group in Ottawa and asked whether it would be possible perhaps to borrow from Canada's reserves enough heavy water to do this rather specific use of heavy water for measuring neutrinos from the sun. It turns out it was possible. Atomic Energy of Canada allowed us to borrow $300 million worth of heavy water for about 10 years from reserves. It's used as a moderator in Canadian nuclear reactors. Herb Chen passed away about 3 years later in 1987, and we continued. I became the American spokesman for the project. George Ewan was the Canadian spokesman, and David Sinclair from Oxford and now Carleton moved back to Canada, and we worked on developing it, and eventually were funded in 1989. And then it took us 10 years to get operational on the detector, and we have our results, our first results, in 2001, and even more substantial ones with greater accuracy in 2002. Continued to work until 2007, and then to analyze thereafter. So 1984 to 2007, predominantly.
So what motivated you to do your topic of what is failure?
I think it's a topic that really resonates with me. My personal opinion is that people talk too much about success, and like the world kind of like puts it on like a pedestal. It's like, oh, if you succeed, then that's a good thing, but if you fail, then it's a bad thing. And so failure is always like that subject that like, oh, like we don't really talk about it, like brush it under the rug and like move on with life. And I was like, why do we do that? Like I started questioning like if I fail at something or when my friends fail at something, and like not necessarily like fail like an F, but like do less than what we thought we were capable of doing. It's like, why do we beat ourselves up instead of looking as failure as a stepping stone to success? Because like failure is supposed to be like a lesson that you learn to help you not make that same mistake in the future. So I think that's what really was like a topic or like a perspective that I felt I needed to show and like bring to light to other people.
Pop Sandbox is a multimedia production and publishing company. Mm-hmm. So in it we've done everything from films, video games, graphic novels, interactive experiences. So I basically take a film producer's approach, but I'm not really tied to film as a medium. So it's really kind of letting the story choose the form and also the audience we're trying to engage with. And I guess a lot of that speaks to, when I started out, I felt like film was the most important medium for reaching a mass audience, but I think that's changed. And so where people engage, what they engage with, it's completely different. So a lot of what we've done is like documentary-based work, but documentary as a graphic novel, as a video game, as a tourism mobile app. So all these kind of different ways of telling mainly documentary-based stories.
What motivated you to start the Pop Sandbox project? Is it a project or?
Yes. So Pop Sandbox started it 10 years ago, and that was, so I'd worked first as a producer right out of school, but I didn't, I feel like there's kind of holes in my knowledge. So then I got into distribution. I worked with Mongrel Media, learned the distribution side, so that then what I would be able to do is go back to producing, but be able to produce the projects, but make sure not only does the project get made, but it also reaches the audience it was intended for. And so when I started Pop Sandbox, it was very much with that in mind, but the market had changed, and so I wasn't really necessarily tied to film. It was more so all these different forms of storytelling. So as a kid, I loved comics, films, video games, and so now it's basically been playing with a lot of those forms and then just different ways of, I guess, engaging audience.
I'm their first employee in China. We started operation about a year and a half ago. I helped to build a team here, start a business, and lead a team to focus on the first major project in China. Now the project is up running, all the factories and printers are up running. So it has been a busy 1 year, but was a very interesting experience for me. Before that, I worked for a US Fortune 500 company, which is more East Coast culture, and worked in the finance area in that company for more than 15 years. I started as an analyst and trainee, and then I came back to my home country, China, based in Shanghai, and started to work with the team there. We started with about 20, 30 people, a small office, representative office. Then we started first the wholly owned and then JV. By the time I left, we have about more than 2,000 people in China, and we have almost 13 plants in China. So I really had a good experience, grow with the company, experienced up and down in that 15 years. And I moved up to like a CFO for a business division. It's actually, it was a global role. We had an international division responsible for sales outside of the United States. So I responsible for a lot of offices in different part of the world. We have a couple in Europe, in Latin America, and obviously the major part is in Asia. So it was an interesting role.
There were many aspects of the experiment that were first time that things were done, and they were all challenging in different ways. It's the largest cavity that had ever been excavated at such a depth, 2 kilometers down. And so we had to have very careful control of the walls of the cavity, make sure they were stable. Great help from mining engineers, including people here at Queen's, including a professor who developed the Uralon coating that gave us a watertight cavity when we were finished. The cavity was 34 meters high and 22 meters in diameter. Very big excavation. In the middle of it was an acrylic sphere, 22 meters in diameter and 5 centimeters thick, that had to be bonded together out of 120 pieces that were small enough to go down in the elevator and then had to be bonded in place. Very careful tolerances on that. The water that was used was purified to be 1 billion times purer than tap water, less than 1 radioactive disintegration per day per ton of water. So it really was free of radioactivity. Electronics, which were the latest thing at the time, from which we had the Canadian Microelectronics Corporation here at Queen's help us in terms of building it. Various delays as we tried to do these things for the first time. It took us longer to do the cavity, and we had to change our techniques partway through in order to make sure we got it done close to schedule. We had difficulties bonding the pieces of acrylic to build the vessel, but we worked our way through that, and now the techniques we developed are used in building enormous aquaria around the world. Really were advantageous to the industries with whom we were working, and so that's very often the case. You try to do basic science and push technology to the limit, and you learn things that are of broader value. So there was a lot of effort that went into the project.
So in my previous company, as I said, I worked about 15 years. So in different stages, the challenge will be different. But I think at the end, I feel pretty comfortable with my role. Obviously, the challenge in that role, which was an international role, is how to understand the business in each different country, and meeting the needs for internal customers, and make sure we are in compliance with the local rules, but also can follow the standard procedures internally. So it's the diversity was the challenge for me. Try to understand all different rules in different countries. And then also manage the communication. When you have a global team, some are in Europe, some are in India, some in Latin America, you have to have a lot of calls and sometimes travels to make sure you have a good understanding of what they need and how you can support them. But overall, because it's an environment that I stayed for 15 years, it's pretty much like a family. We all know each other quite well, and have a long established reputation there. It's pretty easy to give my opinion and input and work on things together. For the new company, I guess I have to do everything from scratch. It's the scratch that in the operations in China, but also as a person or employee in that company. I just started a year ago. So still need time to get to know people, understand their specific company culture, and can make sure I have a positive influence to the business, and then get what I want. But I'm still kind of trying to understand what's the most effective way, trying to get there.
Yeah, so I guess I came to when I came to Queen's as a student, I found that that the program was great, but I wasn't getting enough access to the industry. And I think being in Kingston, you're that extra step removed. And so a lot of what I started doing is trying to see how I could create my own opportunities. So started by getting involved in running and managing the Screening Room Movie Theatre, and then using the Screening Room Movie Theatre to start the Kingston Canadian Film Festival, largely as a way of using the festival to bring industry right here to Kingston, to create more opportunities that the films that we're making aren't just getting played in a classroom, they're getting played in front of a broader audience. So all looking at ways of ideally kind of like a launch pad.
Well, success in this instance really was a matter of making a significant scientific discovery, one that had not been known before, one that changed the laws of physics as we know them at a very fundamental level. And that is really, I think, what the people who worked on the project regarded as a success. I mean, we shared a very major prize in the United States called the Breakthrough Prize, which was awarded across the collaboration. But they award the Nobel Prize only to one person. But I'm very conscious of the fact that I simply represent a group of 270 people. I think that group regards those prizes as being wonderful recognition, but that's not really the success that they recognize most. What they recognize is their contribution to science. It's how they started, it's why they got involved in the project in the first place, and it's something that clearly is substantial, as recognized by these prizes, but then our participants knew it was substantial at the time that we did it. And that's what they regarded as success. And so, in this case, success is hard work rewarded by something significant. And that significant thing was a scientific discovery of a very significant order. So I think you can measure success in various ways. Not many of the people on this project think of it in anything other than a success of a scientific nature.
So I think both the wealth and fame will have to be will tested by time and see how long it can last, right? And it's like in Chinese 时间会要考验你的金钱和你的财富，并且还和你的这个名气，对不对？ A lot of people just one time they got it, but they won't last long. But if you can really make it a long-term sustainable, it's actually quite something. So I agree, yeah. But I just think there's different ways to keep it and make it a long-term, and then that's how you really test yourself.
I think there's very much like a stigma around success being money and like fame and like the American dream, you know? And I think that that's definitely catered towards like certain people who have that version of success in their mind to be like that point, you know what I mean? Like, I'll only be successful if I get this, 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 and this.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the definition of success has kind of changed for me a bit. So like early days when I was starting out, I just had all these dreams of projects I'd love to do, and I don't think they even felt achievable. So it's like I was just throwing myself at them, and then it's kind of in time when I started to get a chance to achieve some of these things, which is amazing. I started to realize, well, the reality of it and what you thought it was going to be rarely match up, and ultimately the lasting piece of it is the experience and the process of going through it. So I think like for that, it would be, I guess I'd define success much more around process, about doing meaningful work that you're engaged with, and I think doing that work with people either you care about or that you really respect. And I think in a career way, that's certainly how I would kind of define success. And it's less so about like a financial outcome. I mean, certainly stability and security is so important, but beyond that, that's not kind of like a guiding principle for me. I think it's just, and when I look back at it again, like, so then getting a chance to do some of those projects and get there and realizing the reality that it's not quite what I thought it was going to be, then it's been more so about recognizing kind of the process, and making sure that you're enjoying it and that you're getting to work with people that you enjoy and that you engage with. And then I think now it's an interesting spot as I'm getting more back involved within the Kingston community or with the teaching. I think on that side, part of that is because I recognize, like, ultimately some of the lasting legacy is those relationships that you've been able to build, or the people you've been able to help, and that I think is, like, you know, if the film festival stopped today, if the Kingston Film Office closed today, if Pop Sandbox shut down, the lasting legacy would really be just the people who've been able to help or help get behind or create opportunities for. And I think that, for me, I find a ton of meaning in.
Success can very much be like a mental thing that you overcome too. You know, like success can be like, I thought about failure as once something that held me back as a person, but now I think of it as failure. Like, now I think of failure as like a good thing. And like the fact that you can get there every single time that you do like low, that's successful. Like, that's a successful mental like accomplishment for me.
Well, when I talk to high school students or people early in their university career, I often get a question, you know, how do I pick a career? And what I say is very straightforward, and it's almost, I don't know whether it's that profound. It's you should think about what's going to make you happy when you wake up in the morning and set about doing it during the day. There should be probably several different things that could be potential careers for you, and you should explore as much as possible when you're young opportunities to give them a try. Give those subjects in university or summer jobs or things like that in areas that you might find interesting, and then see how good you are at them. Some things you may love to do, but maybe you're not very good at it. I mean, you might love to be a concert cellist, but you aren't very musical. So find the things that are a combination of things you enjoy and things that you are good at, and pursue them.
From my own point of view, after like not getting a job or I wanted, or like not getting a position on like some club or whatever that I wanted, it's very much like, instead of that being the end all be all, it's maybe there's something better out there for me, you know, like maybe I wasn't supposed to actually be doing this, and I'm like, I need this time to like do my own thing, you know? So it's like very much change your mindset and change your life.
Well, yeah, I think it's already great if you're chasing your passions, pursuing your passions. Then I think it's already such an amazing thing. I think the stuff that's just really important to do is sometimes we can get so preoccupied about achieving something at this young age, and it's like, you know, societal pressure and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I would definitely say, like, slow down and take the time to enjoy the whole process and to learn as you're going. Because at the end of the day, it's much more about the process than it is the end result. And then the other thing I would also really encourage is make time for your passion. passions outside of it. And so for me, it's whether it's soccer, whatever it is for you, it's just that it's really important that you don't just abandon all your other stuff, because very rarely, and this is an incredibly demanding industry, so I find very few people are going to tell you to stop, to make sure you're doing the things that you love. And so if it's not a concerted effort that you prioritize that for yourself, then I think that can be a danger. So I definitely say, make sure that you find time for a life outside of it, no matter how much you love it.
Yeah, but I think now the kids they live in a really different world. A lot of jobs we do now probably will disappear when they grow up. So our advice may not be that good for them. I think the basic thing is, if you have the attitude to work hard for things, you will always be successful at the end.
To be honest, I think the simplest and most complex definition of success is the dictionary one: the accomplishment of an aim or purpose. The definition is easy because at the heart of it, success is achieving your goal or goals. But it's hard as well because not only everyone's definition of success differs, but also because it's more than just achieving what you want. It's also about trying and/or having the courage to take the first step in the process of trying to achieve success, even if you fail at the end. But in order to achieve success, you must first have a goal or dream to guide you towards success, or something to at least motivate you, or a purpose for you to acquire the success that you want. If you never try, if you never take the first step towards success, then you will never succeed. You will always fail. You have to be willing to sacrifice what you are and what you have now for an unknown amount of time and for an unknown probability of success or failure. This is something that no one mentioned in the interviews. The most relevant thing indirectly related to sacrifice was that it took Professor Arthur MacDonald nearly 30 years to achieve something. However, aside from time, what else did they sacrifice to get to where they are now? People like to hear success stories, and they like what they see at the end. But not many of us are willing to sacrifice who we are now for who we could potentially become later, because we fear the unknown, as there is no guarantee. Unfortunately, due to a time constraint, I'm only allowed 30 minutes for this short documentary. Unfortunately, I can only give out 2 or 3 tips. The first one is a motto that I gave myself when I was around 19 or 20 years old. I can't remember now because I'm pretty old. I'm 22 as of 2020. My motto is, become the best potential you that you can be, and it's very simple. Picture yourself as the person that you want to be. I don't want you to think of anybody else, no famous people, and no celebrities. I want you to imagine who you ideally want to be. You might want to be multilingual. You might want to be able to play multiple instruments. You might even want to start your own business one day, or something like that. That's what I mean by becoming the best potential you that you can be. My second tip would be a Saiyan. I guarantee that a lot of you will be kind of confused and be like, why are you saying be a Saiyan? Are you perhaps referring to Dragon Ball Z characters like Goku and Vegeta? Absolutely yes. And if you get the reference, then you're a true person of culture. For those of you that don't understand, you are uncultured. Please don't take it seriously. For those of you who don't know what Saiyans are, they're a humanoid warrior alien race that have monkey tails. They're also a living embodiment of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So these Saiyans, they love to fight and they love to train. After recovering from every training session, or a fight, all of their fighting or combat attributes increases dramatically. However, the biggest increase happens when they recover from the brink of death. This is also known as a Zenkai boost. This boost increases their fighting or combat attributes a lot more than just ordinary training and fighting. So what I'm saying is, treat yourself like a Saiyan. I don't mean it like physical pain, I mean more like mental pain, and learn to enjoy that pain. I often refer myself as a masochist, but not in a sexual way. I mean it more as in I enjoy the struggle, I love the hardship. Because for me, it's an opportunity to grow, to learn more about myself, to test my limits, and break my limits. I also intentionally break myself mentally, and then after some time of recuperating, I become a lot more mentally stronger. I can face the same challenges, or harder challenges, and still not be faced by it. In fact, I relish it. I think my final tip would be bite off more than you can chew. Lots of people say don't bite off more than you can chew, but I kind of disagree, especially when you're young. When you're young, you have the allowance of screwing up a lot, as people expect you to. So go make mistakes and learn from them, as long as your mistakes aren't too serious. Because when you get older, you're no longer responsible for just yourself. You're also responsible for others. So for this past year, I've been taking 6 courses, the sixth one being mentoring second-year film students. On top of my courses, I've also been doing my Robert H. Black Audio Residency Program, or radio documentary training program on the side. Simultaneously, I've also been filming my own things, helping friends from both in and outside of school to film their projects, taking promotional photos for El Asador, a Mexican restaurant near where I live, taking BTS, also known as behind the scenes photos for Skeleton Park Arts Festival, and the DGC, Directors Guild of Canada workshop event. I also actively seek out opportunities where I make my own opportunities to make myself become better. So all of this also ties into becoming the best potential you that you can be. Thank you for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed. I will also be releasing a personal version where there is no time limit, and you will also get to hear the original 6 people that I interviewed.